Today we're talking about follow up and follow through. Now we're going to go into Headspace, and it's going to help you unstuck yourself for the day. But also we're going to also give you some tools and skills to further advance your success. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Monet today as well. So enjoy that. We're going to have some fun today, but we're also going to allow you to step into the greatness of creating success in health, wealth, finances, and mental.
Great morning, world! Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon!
Great morning, world. Today started off fantastic because I found these glasses. These are kind of my Elton John-ish glasses with the white rims, and I couldn't find them. And they were like part of my arsenal that I love so much, and I found them this morning. However, I will take them off so we can be eye to eye. Great morning, world. Loving the vibe of this morning. Love the timestamp for those that ended up listening to this on the podcast or as a recording. It's the 30th. It's the last day of April. And there's so much going on right now. We're 1 year plus into the whole coronavirus thing, which is now not just a thing that started and potentially stopped, because even though we're noticing that there's change going on in it, just always want to be conscious and awake to what else is going on. Observing all of the political unrest and interesting, changes of power going on simultaneously. We're seeing a lot of, humans just changing their viewpoints. We're seeing a very, very big increase in fear. Although on the other side, I'm seeing there's a whole vaccination thing going on. We're part of this. We're going to have some great stories to tell our kids, and, way past, the time that we expire. Stories will be told about this time. It's so pivotal. So you can look at that and say, oh man, this is all happening to us. Or you can say, wow, we're experiencing this right now. But one of the things that I'm also noticing on the bright side of things, and I hope that my podcast and my show helps people develop this, is people are starting to ask more questions. Sometimes from a good place, sometimes from a bad, but people are becoming way more conscious of other stuff that's going on. Like, I'll give you an example. Social media has just kind of like snuck its way into our lives and our regular schedule, but we're starting to wake up right now and learn about its impact and effects on us, right? So, this morning I like to help people become conscious of this. So I just ask questions like, is the lion's share of your time being swallowed up by your technology and social media, or the things that matter most? So there's this conversation going on right now, whether it's in the realm of workaholics or just waking up and recognizing that our kids are consuming unconsciously stuff that's programming their minds. Here we are on the Rise Up with Dragon show talking about, this idea of improving and upgrading our interface response system. Why do we even have to do that? Because our analytical minds that create perceptions that give us the knee-jerk reactions that get us off track and distraction, all that stuff that we're working on here. Well, our kids are developing a new upgraded level of distractive behavior, right? Consuming. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know. But what we're doing is we're starting to just wake up and ask questions. And I think that's the battle. That's the major battle. And that's what I really, really do what I do for. The reason why I share these with you, these rise ups, is to just get you thinking. Because once you start thinking, you tap into that conscious part of your mind, which is very, very limited, because we spend 95% of our All right, great morning to everybody saying great morning. We spend 95% of our time in the autopilot, the unconscious. So we're starting to maybe spend a fraction of another second in the conscious mind by asking questions and becoming aware. Not labeling things as good or bad, but just becoming aware and waking up to things. So that's how I look at the good and the bad, and I say it's all good. Because I think all of these things that are happening, they're not happening to us, they're happening for us, because what they're doing for us is they're making us wake up. And I think that's something that we need via natural selection. Only as the strong survive. In order for us to move on to the next level, where we might have to migrate to another planet or something like that, it's going to require a higher level of thinking. And then when I say something like that, like, what if, right? Because on this show, we just talk about what ifs. We don't choose to be right versus kind. We're open. In fact, I always admit that a lot of what I say might be completely wrong, and I'm open to change. But when we start to entertain the meaning of life and what if we're really a species that's supposed to migrate to another planet or for survival and all that stuff, you start to realize once again that maybe most of the stuff that we're thinking is important is not important. And then you meet somebody like my friend Donald Hoffman that says, we don't know what the hell we're doing because reality could just be a simulation and a game. So welcome to the Dragon's Lair. I say great morning to all of you. I've got a great rise up for you. As a quick reminder, part of my personal growth journey and dealing with things like anxiety, and depression, and all that stuff, my biggest fear was always public speaking. So I always put myself, great morning, Tina, great morning, Risa, Liz. I always put myself in the most uncomfortable position I can because that's where growth takes place. So we're streaming this live on all socials. If you're listening to this on a podcast, at the time that this was recorded live, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I've got a Clubhouse room open. You can always find me in Clubhouse at Makes Sense. We have an after party where people can interact and ask questions about the topic. And you can find and subscribe, rate, and review Rise Up with Dragon, which has like over 25,000 downloads right now, which is interesting because I never really put any time to grow it. But the chickens and the dragons are growing, and we're creating a shift and a change according to all your feedback. Really excited about the new 15 Days to Discipline course, which is being produced. I have a whole production team working on that. If you're interested in creating discipline, just go to Instagram, DM me the word discipline, and you'll get the free overview course, which teaches you a whole bunch. So great morning, world. Today we're talking about follow up and follow through. Now we're going to go into Headspace, and it's going to help you unstuck yourself for the day. But also we're going to also give you some tools and skills to further advance your success. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Monet today as well. So enjoy that. We're going to have some fun today, but we're also going to allow you to step into the greatness of creating success in health, wealth, finances, and mental. So follow up and follow through. As you know, always fascinated with achieving new increased levels of consciousness and awareness. Have you heard me talk about that before? Of the things that we can and can't control. I think that this is probably one of the most valuable things that a human being can learn. In my book, I refer to it as the interface response system. You can find that in the podcast archives. But in essence, what it's talking about is our ability to control the controllables, which means our response to things rather than try to control the things and outcomes. So this idea of identifying what we have control over and what we don't, what it did for me is it helped me recognize years and years ago when I started practicing it, because practice makes progress, right? I started practicing this stuff. And it helped me recognize years ago that while I was in an oscillating pattern, meaning go, stop, one step forward, one step back, that yo-yo pattern, right? I was wasting in fact, most of my day trying to control uncontrollable things. So stop right there in that second and just evaluate your own current reality and what it is that you're doing with your time. And just ask yourself, whether it takes you somewhere or not, ask yourself, what you're spending your time doing, right? We talk a lot about time blocking. In Nir Ayal's book, by the way, everybody needs to go read Indistractable. Please grab that book and just devour it or get it on Audible, because at the end of May, Nir is going to be my guest, and you're going to want to have read that book before you speak to him. But in any case, I was spending valuable time in my desire to succeed, right? I knew what I wanted. I wanted to move forward, but I was focused on often uncontrollable outcomes rather than the controllable incomes and activities that were in my control. So that's a big distinction to make, right? So you look at what you're spending your time on, what's in my control, what's out of my control, and even don't look at it as a bad thing. If you identify that you're spending a lot of time, and you've heard me use the terminology of fake work, busy work, right? If you're spending a lot of time distracted or spending time on things that you don't have any control over, you're wasting time. So that's why it's important to identify, am I spending time, or my activities, my daily activities, things that I actually can control? So this is a breakthrough that most millionaires report when they tell their success story. I love listening to success stories of multimillionaires. In fact, I love our Thursday Clubhouse, called Integrated Life, where I have on my moderator panel, I have people that are seven-figure and up earners, and I love to hear their stories. They're there teaching and training sometimes, but I love to hear their stories because, what you hear in their stories baked in that they made a decision and they went all in, but you also hear that they started spending their time on high leverage activities rather than waiting on outcomes and spending time on things and people that didn't matter. So they leaned up, I heard somebody the other day say travel light. I forget who it was, but travel light meaning only take the things on this journey that actually serve you and that mean something to you. So this morning I want to highlight one of the most powerful and valuable activities that are fully in our control and prove to be some of the highest leverage accelerators and momentum builders in growth, if you're into that sort of thing. So if you're into things like accelerating your growth and building momentum in your growth, then prop yourself up and listen to this. So to follow up and follow through is what we're going to talk about. Now, those are different things, but they're both important. So we're going to delineate the difference and unveil the value, but also more importantly, highlight the fact that you're 100% in control of this to accelerate and leverage yourself for success. And think about it. I think we're all learning, we're trying to learn, like, what's the secret to success? What's the trick, right? The trick is some of these work ethics. That's why I'm doing the 15 days of discipline. I believe if you build discipline, then you can do anything with consistency, which will help you follow through and follow up and all that stuff. So that's the win. So that's why I'm creating that course. So it's more characteristics and work ethics and acumen than tricks, right? Because when you get to the top of the mountain, that's all people talk about. They say it was easy once I made the decision and followed through. So we're going to pick these things apart and we're going to get clear on how they accent each other, but also how they differ from one another. But think about it. When you start something, is it in your full control to follow up and follow through? Just ask yourself that. Don't listen to the dragon. Does it leverage your chance of a win when you follow up and follow through? So if you really think about that, the answer is yes and yes, right? So let's switch for a second now, and I'm going to allow and I'm going to give everybody permission to make more money, right? I'm going to give everybody permission right now to talk about making more money, more money, more money, right? Now, the reason why we're going to use money for this example is it's okay. And listen, money's not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. Is that true? I don't know. But all I know is that money is a currency that we can use for good or bad, but it's something that we need. In fact, we're moving into a new world where currency is being threatened and evolution of currency, like money, cash, all that stuff's about to go, but we still need it. So we're just transferring. Is it going to be in gold? Is it cryptocurrency and all that stuff? I'm enjoying observing that stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't matter compared to the things that matter most, but I still need it for the things that matter most. So we're going to talk about something that is very important in your life, but I'm going to give you permission today to make more money. So let's talk about that for a second. So in any profession, listen up here. in any profession, your profession and everybody else is included, in any profession where you're connecting and networking with new colleagues or candidates daily, there's a big difference between those who simply grind. Now, we learn about doing the hard work and grinding and having characteristics of grit. Those are great things, but there's a difference between people that grind and do the do and those that follow up and follow through. I noticed that rhymed after the fact. So when it comes to solidifying these connections that you're making, so everybody's out there. If you're an entrepreneur and you're building your business and you're not just working for the man, right? And this is a big thing now. Everybody's starting to work for themselves. So if, when it comes to building connections and relationships, that's huge. So when it comes to solidifying those connections, how do you follow up and how do you follow through? Because following up has a lot to do with that. So let's first understand the inherent differences between the two, following up and follow through. Why do we want to understand them? Because we want to become conscious of the difference so that you don't think that you're doing one when you're doing the other, or you don't think you're doing one when you're not doing anything at all. So let's bring that to the surface right now. So follow up is a communication-based way of building trust with the people that you are speaking to, that you're networking with, while following through is an action-based method of building trust. So think about that for a second. Following up is a communication-based activity, right? And it's about building trust and things like that. But then we say following through, both under your control. One takes a little bit more time than the other, maybe, who knows? But following through is an action-oriented thing. So here we are, we know that action creates results, right? But they work together. So follow through continues until the action or task is complete. So let's look at your business right now. Let's focus on you right now. Let's look at your business acumen and practices. If you've made that quality decision, and remember what a quality decision means, is that you've looked at something and said, I'm making a decision to go after this long term, and you've also identified the work that's involved and the risk and the sacrifice, and you've said, I'm doing it anyway, and I'm committed to the long term. Remember, when I made my decision to create what I now have that is manifested as this thing called the dragon, I said I'm going to do it long term. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even acknowledge the results that I was getting, the outcome that's out of my control, for 2 to 5 years, right? So if you've made that quality decision to contend for your dreams and chose the structure, right? We got to have structure, we got to have strategy, we have to have mentorship and guidance, all things that I teach how to build into your schedule in the 15 days of discipline. So if you have all those things and a support team to get you there, then let's look at your daily activities. Let's uncover your daily activities. Are you building a list of contacts and starting conversations, right? You can't have conversations unless you're building a list and identifying people. So this means not just friend requesting people, right? So let's go into the business acumen. It doesn't mean friend requesting people. It's not just a hello, right? But a curious and compassionate question that is about them, followed up by listening and seeking to understand them more than being understood. So let's stop there for 1 second. When you're connecting with people to build this list of things, right? Are you just connecting with people to acquire a number of connections? Or are you connecting with people and being curious and compassionate to find out about them? And I have this lesson that I teach called find out what their thing is, right? I always say, what's your thing, right? Everybody wants to be happier, healthier, and wealthier, but what's your thing? Well, then you're off to a good start if you're doing that. If you're creating a list of contacts, but then authentically finding out about them and asking questions, then you're off to the races. Because remember something, a conversation doesn't start until you say hi and ask a question, right? So you're off to a good start as those conversations and listening skills are forging the basics of relationship building and trust, which comes from genuinely being interested. Genuinely. Here's a mistake that a lot of people make when they're building conversations and relationships. They just are looking for bodies. And this is one of the things that I didn't like about like large scale multi-level marketing and network marketing. I've learned a lot of different things since, but the whole numbers game, right? it doesn't say that you're actually interested in them. You're interested in what they can do for you when you're playing the numbers game. So I don't like to look at it that way. Remember, the first words out of my mouth every morning are, how can I help? So when I have conversations that are curious and compassionate, I'm asking questions about how I can help them, which requires me to learn about them. Because when I ask that question, how can I help? I don't know. So I become curious and compassionate when I meet people to find out, how can I help? Can I help, right? Sometimes not helping is a way of helping people. Get the hell out of their face sometimes, right? So eventually, in the first 1 to 8 touches, and this is just a statistic that I've observed, once you start relationships, in the first 1 to 8 touches of your conversation and relational development, they're going to find out what it is that you do. They're going to find out your story and connect how you may be of service to their needs. But it's going to happen organically because you're building an authentic relationship based on this stuff, right? So I'm setting you up for why follow-up is important. So directly or indirectly, you're going to build an organic relationship. You're going to show them yours. They're going to show you theirs, right? It's called the law of reciprocity, right? If you authentically are interested and curious about others, they will bounce the ball back to you. Now, if you take interest in someone and claim that you desire to learn more about them, or provide them with something and you don't follow up, let's think about what happened there, right? If I meet you and I say, I want to be friends with you, I'm interested in you, I want to do business with you, and I think I can help you. And there's those statements that happen, right? And I don't follow up with them, well, you're losing their trust. That's what I said. It's a communication-based thing, follow up. You're losing their trust and unveiling that you were not, in fact, interested and just playing, as I said before, the numbers game, right? You're just saying, if I speak to enough people, I'll find someone that gives me what I want, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting. I've spoken about this fact many, many times, right? What we talk about is that human beings are value-seeking missiles. We don't think, say, or do anything that has no value. It's okay to want, but what I'm encouraging you to do is to want to understand them better, right? And if you do that, right, if that's your want, then you're going to get what you want on the other side. It happens organically, right? So you're losing their trust and unveiling that you are not, in fact, interested in just playing the numbers game, hoping to strike the gold, strike it rich on the first date. One of the things and observations that I always made that I think is cool is, what's the first step before you get married to somebody, right? You have to first get engaged. And what's the step before getting engaged? You have to date and you have to court. But what happens on the first date? You have to impress upon one another. And impressing upon one another is about creating relationship, creating commonalities. And sometimes it's not a good idea to try to make out on the first date. So why would we in business do it any other way? Why in business do we go out there and try to make out on the first date? And how do you prove that that's what you were doing? Is you don't follow up with someone. So if you tell me that you're interested in me and I'm not ready to play right away, but then you don't follow up, here's what I know. You weren't interested in me. You were interested in what I could do for you. So follow up is huge. So not an effective plan if you're not following up. And it's also not a good use of time. It's actually a time sucker. It's actually a distraction away from high leverage activities. As a matter of fact, if you're playing the numbers game, it's going to take you longer to succeed, and it's going to decrease your leverage and acceleration. So that's why they say the fortune is in the follow-up. Right? So if you're somebody that's been out there contending and you have a massive list of people that said no to you, or not yet, or I don't know, or I have to check, give me some time, or thanks, but no thanks, and you have a massive list of those people and you're the kind of person that follows up with them, well, you're going to build trust and great relationships, but also you're going to be a multimillionaire if you follow up. Most people don't follow up. So all this stuff builds confidence and trust in these people. Now comes the time where we tell ourselves or tell others, tell ourselves, because we talk to ourselves all the time and we talk to ourselves in the mirror, or we tell others that we're going to do something. I have a rise up called gonna butts, right? We're always saying what we're gonna do. We tell others what we're going to do, and we tell ourselves. And as soon as we decide not to do it, we use our butt. Our butts are behind us, but we bring them up to the front of us, right? We say, I'm gonna butt, I was gonna butt, right? So when we tell ourselves or others something that we're going to do, that's going to leverage the outcome that we desire and they desire, right? This action-based thing requires an action-based follow through, right? So this action-based and this thing that we're talking about requires following through, meaning being impeccable to your word. The Four Agreements, one of the greatest books ever. I've downloaded it and on Audible, and I've gone through it many, many times. And one of the Four Agreements is to be impeccable to your word. And why is that important? Because if you're not impeccable to your word, then your word means nothing. So meaning being impeccable to your word and being able to identify with yourself in the mirror. When you talk to yourself in the mirror and you identify, are you identifying yourself as somebody that says something and does it? Right? Sometimes if we play our old story in the realm of physical, mental, and financial journey, and going after things that we desire, our old story is I start off strong and then I stop. So is that what you say to yourself in the mirror, right? Or do you look at yourself in the mirror and say, when I say something, I'm going to do it? Now that's another reason why you want to take my 15 days of discipline, because you have to build discipline around that. You can become that person if you're not right now. But doesn't talk about it, but walks about it. I love that idea. I'm not a big fan of talkers. You know why I'm not a big fan of that? Because if I'm being honest, that was me. I was a talker, right? I like walkers. I like people that walk about things, not talk about things. And that's because we never like our old self, right? I've left that guy behind. I became a dragon. So this is crucial because things can get sticky. Right? Things can get sticky when you develop this pattern. And remember, when I say develop a pattern, you can build habits with consistently doing things, whether they're good or bad habits. A good habit is something that propels you forward. A bad habit is something that does not, right? So you can build a bad habit by not following through, right? Unconsciously, when you say that you're going to do something, your program, right? When you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, right? Your program says, yeah, sure you are. And you know what's interesting? When you say something like, yeah, sure you are, right? In your head, there's a couple of things. There's a disbelief in yourself, but also what you've just done when you say, yeah, sure you are, is you're also saying, hey, here's your hall pass, here's your escape route to get out of this and not take responsibility, not move above the line and take responsibility. So there's a cascade of problems when you don't follow through. So my advice to you on that is don't say you're going to do something unless you make that quality decision to follow through on you and on them. Right? Yeah, sure you are. And already you have a hall pass to not follow through and therefore not succeed. So there you have it, my chickens and my dragons out there. Two things fully under your control that you can start right now. You could have started it with a mental shift already. One of them is communication based, and that's the follow up. You're 100% in your control. Detach from the outcome. That's an action step you can take. You can start following up with people and build trust and confidence. And then the other one is to follow through, which is to simply say, hey, if I put this food on my plate, I'm going to eat it, right? 100% under your control. So just as a reminder, if anybody wants a starting point for that, remember this is a free giveaway and that's coming out in the next couple of weeks. Going to be amazing. DM me at Rise Up with Dragon in my Instagram, the word discipline, and I'll send you our 30-minute power session on building discipline. You'll love it. You'll freestyle, take all of that stuff and start applying it. If you want to take the course one day, you can do that. So great morning. And one day, I want you to get to this place where you're in the groove, right? I teach people how to do this on a regular basis, but you get this natural flow of when it is that you learn something, right? Take that thing that you learned, write it down, explain it by sharing it to other people, share this podcast, share this show, create a movement around what you learn. And as I always say, if you learn something today, give it away, and that's how it's going to stay. Love and appreciate you all. We're going to open up our Clubhouse room. Find me at Clubhouse at Makes Sense. And honor and privilege to be with you today. So many fun things coming. And congratulations, timestamp, on an amazing April. If you're looking at the things that you did that leveraged you towards your May, love and appreciate you all. Have an amazing day. Now let's go out with our outro.